This is exciting! River93 reached out to me to review his modules. Little did he know I already used some of the free ones, but he offered me a chance to use some of his premium modules. First, let's talk about kind of the modules I already used that I'm pretty sure a lot of other people already use. And we'll talk about the premium one that he gifted me. If you like what you're watching, consider supporting me on Patreon, where you can get all sorts of really neat things, like behind the scenes, ad-free versions of my videos, live streams, shop discounts, paper products, magazines, and more. Link is in the description. For my games, I have been using habitually the Combat Carousel tracker. If you were around, there was an old version of a Combat Carousel tracker that everybody loved and used. And then when they upgraded to version 10, or was it for version 11? I don't remember at this point. There's been too many versions. He ended up not being able to take care of that. Me and the rest of the community took a hit there. But then this beauty came out. So Combat Carousel Tracker, this one is so much cleaner. Honestly, I think it's an upgrade from the old version anyway. It kind of feels, if you play Baldur's Gate 3, it kind of feels like that same tracker. It has a style to it and it's cleaner. Still offers you all the functionality that's built into the combat tracker innately, but then it also adds a few things. So by default, you can roll initiative right from the tracker itself, either by clicking on the portrait image or by using any of the controls on the left side. In the corner, that will put the initiative, and then you'll also see HP on the bar. Each token or each combatant is separated by color. Obviously, red is enemies, green is allies, yellow is neutral. You can, of course, change those colors if you would like, which is super important for my red-green color confused husband. You can track additional things, and this is the thing I think I like the most about it. Typically, I add the AC to the tracker to help my DM brain. And then the other cool thing I like to add is events. I am one of those DMs that typically needs assistance, especially at the table in person, but even on Foundry with tracking initiative, because there's already so much to keep in my head, you know, the different abilities, that kind of stuff. Throw in an environmental effect and suddenly I am totally overwhelmed. I can never remember what number on the initiative we are on. I'll add a layer action or an environmental effect at initiative 20. And then of course I'll have a rogue or some Dexy character. If you're like me, overwhelmed with tracking events, you can actually add that event into the initiative, put it in hidden even so your players don't know that it happens. But then it's been a lifesaver for me to actually do those things in combat when I'm already overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to kill my players. I mean, no, yeah, I'm trying to kill them. Another free one that I already use, he did not ask me to review 2 free ones, I might add, but I already use these, so I figured I'd talk about both. Another free one I already have used is the Argon Combat HUD for D&D 5e. I don't use it as a GM. I haven't installed it in my campaigns. However, I'm in a different campaign run on Foundry, and in that campaign, has been a lifesaver all the time. It's literally a hub that makes it so you essentially don't need your character sheet while in combat. You can roll your skills, your attacks, you got your feats and abilities, you can track spells and spell casting, literally the works. But if you need your character sheet, there's actually a button for that too. This one in particular helps me a lot because I always forget sneak attack because I'm mostly warlock, but then I also have some levels in rogue, so I get the sneak attack and I forget it a lot. Now let's talk about the paid one. He gave me a list to choose from. I chose Simple Quest. I have a homebrew world I am putting together. I want to put it in Foundry. I want to run the game, but there's definitely going to be a quest board. There are multiple small things that the players are going to have to accomplish to kind of get their name out there as a group before kind of the major events kick in this world. So I figured this would be the perfect thing to check out. And holy cow, immediately I was impressed. It looks and feels very similar to Baldur's Gate 3 quest log in just aesthetics, but don't worry, they actually have themes, which was pretty cool, so you can change it to match whatever your aesthetic is for your campaign. I personally wonder though if there was a custom colors, fonts thing you could do, but that's the designer in me, always wanting everything to match. I honestly just like the default version the best, so I'm gonna keep that one. In this module, everything is built into journal entries, so you can actually still access it even if you don't have the module turned on, which is pretty nice, so you're not like losing all that information when you uninstall the module or if something happens. And it also offers templates for the journals, which I was extremely excited about. Those templates are then reflected in the quest journal, but also in the entries even without the module turned on. It's all pretty intuitive. It's super easy to hide quests, show quests, mark quests, or like with updates with a little exclamation point, which it automatically does when you check and uncheck parts of the quest. It literally works as you expect it to, which is refreshing. But what I wasn't expecting was the additional functionality in the other tabs. Okay, I was just expecting a fancy quest log. It also offers a lore section, a timeline section, and a map section, all of which I was not expecting. The lore tab itself is very similar to just the original journal setup, but honestly, it's visually more pleasing if you ask me. The timeline one was probably the coolest one. I know someone on the Discord asked me recently about a timeline one, and I didn't have an answer for that. Now I do. It is super great, I think, for me in particular, because my homebrew world has a very in-depth history, which may or may not come into play in the campaign, depends on what the characters do. I will still be using it for that campaign just to keep track of history, and I think that will make it easier to show the players as well. The map, I really liked this one. Not only do you have just your general like fog of war where you can mark where players have been, you don't have to show the entire map, but the markers, there were so many different little icons and markers you could place on the map, and I think that really adds. You could even mark like where quests are or where important buildings are in a city. I just thought that was like a really useful aspect of that part of the module. The other two tabs are also nice, but I don't see myself using them very much. One is the tab called My Journal, and this would be mostly for players. So a player can use that section to journal, which I don't typically have a lot of players who journal in Foundry. However, if they did in that section, only they and the GM, aka me, would be able to see it. And then there's of course a party journal where resources can be shared and anyone in the party can edit them, which I also think is pretty useful. But again, I don't have a lot of players who journal right into Foundry, so I think those are less useful for me personally, but still pretty cool that it's all kind of wrapped in one. Essentially, instead of like simple quest, it should be called like, I don't know, lore keeper or something. There's more, it's just so much. There's so much in it. I do have one complaint. The tutorials were a bit complicated for me. The one on the quests section was great because you could check it off and all of that, but for some reason when it comes to tooltips, and I don't think this is anything the developer can do or change about it, but when it comes to tooltips, I either didn't fully read it, or when I read it, I moved on to the next tooltip and then I forgot what was in the first tooltip, and that's just how it happens, I think, with tooltips most of the time. I don't think that is something the Ripper could change and make better, but I ended up not having a real problem with it. Everything is pretty intuitive, so I just messed around a little bit and ended up figuring out the general functionality that was in those tooltips. Like for instance, figuring out where to put the map. It was at first confusing, and then I realized, oh, it's all journal entries, and it was fine. And then I didn't fully get the timeline stuff until I messed around with it a lot. In the end, like, that doesn't make or break this review. So let's talk price, because it's a premium module, and to get any of his premium modules, you will have to be at a supporter level patron on his Patreon. That's $9 a month. And obviously you have to connect your Foundry account to your Patreon, which is super easy to do. I think $9 a month is steep if you're after just this one module. However, he offers so many different ones. It's kind of a drop in the hat, if you ask me. For instance, there's an animation pack for Dice So Nice, and the Dice Goblin in me wanted to scoop that up like immediately. There are caveats I was told to explain to those of you who are interested in subscribing. So the first one is, obviously it's on Patreon. So you are charged on the 1st of the month. So if you sub on the 15th, then you would have it for 2 weeks, and then they would charge you again on the 1st of the month. I think this is just, and someone tell me if this is correct or not, but I think this is just a Patreon thing, not something he can adjust per se. With your $9 subscription, you can download all the premium modules. It includes all of them, plus all the free ones, obviously. Again, that's why I say it's kind of worth it if you're downloading more than one module. If you cancel, you get to keep everything you downloaded, which is pretty cool. However, you wouldn't be able to download any additional ones, obviously, or update the ones you have downloaded without an active subscription, meaning whatever state your modules are in when you unsubscribe is the state they will be in until you resubscribe. Overall, I think this is a pretty good deal. The modules are very well polished, aesthetically pleasing, which pleases my graphic design soul. Also, they're just extremely functional. And he has plenty that are free that you probably already use. So on that note, what modules have you used from the Ripper 93? Put your recommendations down below in the comments, and then let me know if there are any other Foundry modules you guys are interested in me taking a look at from the Ripper or from other people. I'm always down for trying new things. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.